I would argue that something significant have had to happen. And the two most prominent conditions would be the empty tomb and Jesus's appearance. Or it could have been a set of other alternative theories, right? So now we're trying to think, what are possible sufficient conditions to explain the rise of early Christian belief? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at a set of alternative theories that tries to explain one condition and ignore the other. So this is a common line of argument from skeptics. They would try to explain why the tomb was empty. The body could have been stolen. That was a common occurrence. Robbing tombs. Maybe they forgot where they buried Jesus, which is a little bit more far-fetched, or they forgot where they buried Jesus, right? But let's just take the stolen body, for example. That was an acceptable explanation. So by them approaching it this way, they can easily try to explain it away, right? By saying the tomb was found empty, fine, but the body was stolen. And they ignore the other. Or they would say Jesus appeared, it could be visions, it could be hallucinations, and they ignore the empty tomb. The question is, would this approach be appropriate? If I just take one of the conditions, would it be sufficient to explain the rise of early Christian belief? And I'll show why it would not be sufficient. Now, if we just take the empty tomb without the appearances, nobody in the pagan world would have interpreted an empty tomb as implying resurrection. Everyone knew such a thing was out of the question. Like I said, robbing tombs was normal. Somebody stole the tomb, the disciples stole the body, which was what was the excuse written in the New Testament. If that was the only condition, the empty tomb, again, as a first century Jew, would it be enough for you to believe that something significant had happened? I don't think so, right? You would just say, yeah, the body is stolen. The tomb is empty. So what? I'm going to continue to go on with my Jewish traditions. No Christianity for me, no thanks, right? What about if it was just the appearances without the empty tomb? Now, most people in the ancient world, they already knew that visions and appearances of recently dead people occurred. People do have visions of people who recently passed on, right? But such visions meant precisely that these people were dead, not alive. And that contrasts with Jesus's resurrection, where people believed that he was back alive. And even if several such appearances had occurred, as long as the tomb was occupied by a dead body, they would have no reason to think that the resurrection happened, right? So over here, what I've shown is that the empty tomb alone would not be sufficient, because it's easy to explain it away for a first century Jew. Neither is it sufficient to say that, well, we have Jesus's appearances, but the body is still in the tomb. Remember that the first century Jews believe in a bodily resurrection. So to have the body still present in a tomb is going to defeat the whole idea of resurrection for them altogether. So would they have become Christians if only one of this happened? They wouldn't. So the first set of counter arguments that the skeptics propose to try to explain one condition and ignore the other would not be a reasonable one, because just one of them would not be sufficient condition. So I've shown that the alternative theories, by just picking one of this, would not be able to explain the rise of early Christianity, right? One of them is easy to explain, and it's not sufficient for a first century Jew. So they must have occurred together for them to be sufficient. Together, that's how a first century Jew now have good reasons to think that, hey, something significant or weird or unexpected had really happened.